You know, the Veradero is here because there are a few models left over in some of the dealer showrooms,
Right.
some non-currents, and there's some fantastic deals. They're giving a couple of grand off on them, so we just wanted to promote that. But the Veradero is not in the lineup for 2011 because partly because production's moved to Italy from Spain, and so they're reorganizing everything there.
Right.
But still, you know, I'm going to miss it because it is without question the most comfortable seat in all of motorcycling. I will thumb wrestle the Goldwing Rider to the death, you know, on that point. And it can be well confirmed. I've put, you know, many sort of 1,500 kilometer days in that saddle, but Warren Milner has the local record anyway, because he's at 2,200 kilometers on the first day and 1,800 on the second, without a stitch of discomfort along the way. So fantastic machine. But probably the one that's getting the most attention in the booth this year is the new CBR 250, and it's something that the riding public has been, you know, waiting for, begging for, asking for a number of years now, and you know, good things come to those who wait is what it all boils down to. There's a lot of new technology in this bike, an incredible amount, and I could speak about it for much longer than you probably have recording time, to be honest, because if I went into any detail on the various patents, I think there's 9 different engine patents and 18 different chassis patents that they've engineered on this, and you know, really it's the bike that will serve all purposes. A lot of people are calling it a beginner bike, but I flat out refuse to, because realistically, there's a lot of people who will never need and never ask for any more bike than this. You know, it does make a fabulous beginner bike because of the size and the weight and so on. But they've engineered it to suit everybody around the world as much as possible. So what I mean by that is that we're fortunate that it's a globally designed model. So, you know, they're going to sell these things by the boatload in some of the Asian countries. It's built in Thailand, right? It's an incredibly popular machine there so far. Indonesia, India, and so on. The volumes that they're producing there are phenomenal. And the advantage that we have is that we can share the engineering and the production efficiencies with those volumes. So it comes in priced very low. In fact, you can get the standard model for only about $4,500, $44.99 is the price, and believe it or not, you can buy it with combined braking system and ABS for only $500 more, for $49.99. Right? Yeah, and now that's for a bike that has a very, very high-tech engine. It's a single-cylinder, fuel-injected, you know, obviously liquid-cooled. It's got all sorts of neat sort of little trick bits to it. So for instance, there's an offset crankshaft, which means that it has a very efficient power stroke. The valve system has been designed and is specific to any motorcycle, being this motorcycle anyway, and is very compact, very efficient, and it's now a double overhead cam, well now in comparison to the 125, which we've had for a few years, double overhead cam, 4-valve engine, and it has a shim over bucket type adjustment with a roller rocker arm that actuates it. A lot of technical stuff that says that it's very good, very durable, very efficient. The chassis is all new as well, so just, you know, a lot of people think that it's just a slightly bigger 125. It's not. The chassis is completely different than the 125. You know, first of all, instead of being a twin spar steel frame, it's a tube type frame, so there's a nice trellis structure underneath there that you can see if you tuck in and look behind the fairing. The swing arm in this rear suspension has the Honda Pro Link suspension, which means a nice linkage, which gives a very progressive feel to the suspension. The whole package overall is designed to feel very sophisticated. And everyone that's tried it so far is stunned that we can produce this level of sophistication for that price. So, yeah, it's fantastic. There have been a lot of questions about how it performs relative to some of the 250 competition. You know, we don't release figures, obviously. We don't see that in Canada very often. But I do know that, how can I put this? It is designed to out-accelerate the competition up to highway speed. They may actually have an extra 10K on top, but without question, it's a very zippy bike. Its focus of power is all up to 9,000 RPM. And in that range, it's ahead of the competition. So.
Perfect. What other bike are you going to show me?
Well, another neat one that we have here, which is attracting a lot of attention, fortunately not at the moment, so we can take a look at it, is the CB1000. Now, this is a model that has been very, very popular in Europe. It's actually designed and built in our Italian factory. The one we're looking at here is actually a 2010 version that we've put the 2011 color on. What is missing, though, is the handlebar is new, and the handlebar fork are gold, and the front end is slightly different, but it gives us a certain feel for the bike anyway. This is four-cylinder. The engine started out life in the CBR 1000. Has been tuned and geared for more of a road feel as opposed to a high-speed racetrack. And it is a very, very stylish bike. That seems to be what is attracting everybody. Is it has a very modern, very European, styling feel to it, and it's not overblown like we've seen with some bikes that come out where they're pushing too far with style. And this is a nice look, and little details like the single-sided swing arms. So from the right side of the bike, you see the rear wheel kind of floating there, and a tight little exhaust, and so on. This bike comes as well with combined ABS. So we're trying to have that on as many of our models as possible.
Honda has been working very hard at attracting the female rider.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for the female rider? What is it in specific that Honda is working at so hard?
Well, one of the things that Honda specializes in, which is a little bit unique to Honda, is the human. I know that seems a little bit general, but it's all about ergonomics. So if you go back to thinking about a bike like the CBR 250, I mentioned that it's a global model. They've designed this, and they want the same model to accommodate all markets around the world. Think about the variation in body sizes over some of the countries that I mentioned, right? The difference perhaps between the average Indonesian and the average North American, right? We want to get those sort of, corn-fed hockey players on as much as we want to get the smaller Asian or even a petite woman for that matter. And it's difficult to design a bike that can actually accommodate that range of people. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. And I've had actually a couple of people comment on the ergonomic range of our bikes. Where you see that a lot is with the cruisers. So particularly something like the Fury. The Fury is a very radical machine. When you look at it from a distance, you think, wow, that really looks like one of those custom bikes that you'd see on a TV or you'd see on display in one of the displays here. But it's an incredibly rideable bike. And again, Honda knows that it won't always be someone like me who's 6 feet tall, and 200 pounds that's riding that bike. Occasionally, it's going to be somebody who's 5'7", maybe 5'4", and so on. And they need to be able to handle it as well as anybody else. So, they will pay attention to the positioning of everything before they do the style. And it's the stylist's job to accommodate the position, which is opposite to many companies. And so now, as far as models, a lot of people say, and I've heard this, say that Honda's trying to support the female market by bringing in things like the CBR 125, the CBR 250, and Honda just shakes their head at that, because in our mind, a small bike does not make it a woman's bike. Right? It's all about having, I guess, a bike that can accommodate everybody. And frankly, I'm not sure that all women want to be singled out as being a woman before they are a motorcyclist.
That's right.
So, I guess in some ways we can be frowned upon because we don't do enough specific to the female, but it's only because we're trying to accommodate everybody as a motorcyclist, first and foremost.
Obviously.
Did you want to take a look at some of the cruisers that we have? Anything in particular?
Let's take a look at that Fury you were telling me about.
It's over in the corner here. The Fury is the we'll call it the most radical of the new 1300 lineup. They're all fuel injected, and they all have a very similar feel to them. Now, that's not to say that if you ride each one of them, they feel exactly the same. There are differences, both ergonomic differences and some chassis differences to accommodate the different need. The Fury, again, has a very radical look, but even if you look at this gentleman who's sitting on it, you can see that he's not as stretched out as he might be on some other, sort of radical machines. So it can accommodate people. Again, this isn't a bike for tiny people. Really, once you get into the 1300s, none of them are, right? If you need to fit somebody around that engine, it can sometimes, stretch them out a little bit. But the important thing is, for something as radical as this, with the 39-degree rake that it has and the big 200 series tire that it has on the back, with this small 21-inch front tire, it actually handles well. And the comment that we get from a lot of press and from a lot of riders who try it on a test ride is that they can't believe that, they were very, very comfortable on the bike very, very quickly. We can take steps through the lineup of 1300s as well. If you look next to that, this blue one we have here is the Sabre, right? We might say that the Fury is true sort of boulevard cruising, almost coffee shop material, despite the fact that it works quite well and surprises people. The rest of them have slightly larger gas tanks and slightly more accommodating, seating positions and so on. Not quite as radical a chassis. So this one is the Sabre is more of a stoplight to stoplight version, right? So you can see that it's slightly more relaxed. It's got slightly different wheel and tires than the Fury does, and certainly a bright, noticeable color this year. The red one over here is the State Line. Now we've gone from stoplight to stoplight to more of a town-to-town bike, right? So this is your Sunday rider, out in the country, and it attracts all the kids and magpies that we can. Hi. Oh, she was on camera. But, again, it's a very, very comfortable bike. It's very nice to ride. The engine feels very responsive and very precise with the fuel injection now. They've all gone to shaft drive, which you've probably noticed as well, right? Which is nice. There's no maintenance or anything involved in the grand scheme of things. And then from town to town, we can go to, let's say, province to province, which is the Interstate model. And the Interstate, now grows a windshield and bags, and it's kind of neat because we've got a nice little hidden latch for the bag, so it's very clean on the outside, but if you reach in here, it'll open up quite quickly and easily. You can fit lots in there, and, no dangly bits to get in the way. We have floorboards and a heel and toe shifter now, and the best thing about the Interstate this year is that it also has combined ABS, which last year it didn't. So our entire 1300cc lineup has ABS, something that most people or most other companies can't claim. We do have a couple of neat models in the 750 range as well. One of the simplest, but perhaps my favorite, because it is the simplest, is over here, which is the Shadow RS. We've got two versions of it here, one of which is the customized paint, though it is stock otherwise. It is a spectacular paint job that one of our dealers applied to it because he loves it. I'm sure it's actually a very expensive paint job. Not everybody would go out of the way to put that paint on it, but it does shine beautifully in the light. The one next to it is accessorized with Honda accessories and is the standard paint on it. Now, the thing I love about this bike is it uses the same 750 V-twin that has been, pretty much our most popular bike for years and years, but it has a slightly more upright riding position. So, you're not as locked into position as you are with a lot of sort of custom style bikes, which means that the foot pegs aren't quite as radical. The handlebars don't have you reaching as far, and so on. So, this is actually the kind of bike for somebody who has a short inseam. As long as they're comfortable, because the seat height may be a little bit higher than a 750 Aero, for instance, but the stretch to the foot pegs isn't as much. Right? So when you're in motion, you're not splayed out as much for a short inseam, but of course you do need to be able to be comfortable and balanced on the bike when you come to a stop, especially. But it's a wonderful, traditional style of cruiser. And then of course we've got the other two 750s, which are over here. The red one is the Shadow Aero, and spectacular color. It's beautiful in the sunshine, and it comes with ABS. It's got a similar engine to the one we were just looking at, obviously. It's been a popular model in our lineup for a long time. Years ago it was chain drive, it's been shaft drive for a few years now. It's a fabulous bargain in the world of motorcycling, and the only thing in this category with ABS available. The sort of dark one over here that we're looking at is the Shadow Phantom. And this one has actually been very, very popular as of late. There's very little chrome on the bike. The mirrors, the exhaust, which seem to be changed by most owners because they want the dark sort of matte look. And it's come in, it's a couple bucks more than the Aero, because believe it or not, this satin finish is actually more expensive than doing chrome. But has the fenders sort of cut back a little bit compared to the Aero. The seat is a slightly different seat with one-piece design as opposed to the two-piece, and it's a beautiful traditional look, very popular that we've seen. And that's the bulk of what's new in our booth this year.
Wonderful. And if a rider was interested in visiting Honda, how would they find you online?
The Honda Canada website is honda.ca, and you can click on motorcycles to find the range of motorcycles. And if all goes well, we're going to see an improved website and a refreshed website within the next few months, so check back. And of course, there's a dealer locator there, so if you have more specific questions and want to chat with somebody, punch in your postal code, it'll tell you where your closest dealer is, and they can answer any other questions people might have.
And your name again is?
I'm Nick Smirnu.
And your position at Honda Canada?
I'm product planner in the Motorcycle and Power Equipment Division.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, no problem. Glad to help.